Thank you. Thank you very much, Marco. Yes, I'm very pleased to have got to 66, almost. A few days to go. We meet today on Whadjuk Noongar land, and I wish to acknowledge the Whadjuk Noongar people as the original owners and spiritual and cultural custodians of this country. Thank you, Joanna, for a fantastic presentation. I'm talking about an institution which is based in a university, the Lawrence Wilson Art Gallery, the Burnt Museum and the Carruthers Collection of Women's Art. So working within a cultural institution offers many challenges and also many exciting opportunities for engaging new audiences, which is of course what we're about, and also many exciting collaborative projects. And fundamental to what we do is undertaking research. And of course there is also the requirement to contribute to the teaching and learning priorities of the institution and to serve the needs of the wider community. The Dr. Harold Schenberg Art Centre that you can see there, incorporating the Burnt, the Lawrence Wilson, the University of Western Australia's art collection and the Carruthers Collection of Women's Art are the agencies through which we carry out this mission. And at the core of our project is the many partnerships that we have established within the wider community that generate innovative collaborations to provide a source of enjoyment, most importantly, intellectual stimulation, fundamental, and to both on and off-campus audiences. But to succeed, we need to be a creative hub that contributes to the meaningful education and learning exchange initiatives that exemplify the university's role as a dynamic institution of higher education. To fulfil this brief, the Cultural Precinct coordinates cultural activities that, as we say, reinforce the undeniable, essential and systematic place of the arts and culture within the fabric of university life. I've always been very impressed by the writings of James Kuno, the former director of the Harvard University Art Museums, who described the special relationships of academic art museums based in research universities in the following way. And what I think he does here so fundamentally is to link together the idea of constantly reviewing the processes that we undertake in terms of curatorship and putting those under rigorous scrutiny, and most importantly, making scholarship an important part of everything that we do. That, he says, is our mission. So that self-reflexive role that he ascribes to university galleries and museums adds another dimension to our activities, to take seriously our role as scholars and to celebrate the circumstances that encourage scholarship. It is an extension of the university's role as a privileged site from which to contemplate, discuss and express views about the economic, political and social issues of the day. A site where ideas can be shared and discussed and debated in public forums. As a result, at the Lawrence Wilson Art Gallery, we design our exhibitions and our engagement with our multiple communities within the context of our role as a centre for learning that critiques, interrogates and reviews current orthodoxies and practices. So I wanted to just give an example of how that works, and I'm talking about a current exhibition, which I hope you've all seen, and if you haven't, I hope you will make sure that you do see. It's Yirrkala drawings. Firstly, the exhibition is based on our collection, which is held by the Burnt Museum. It is a wonderful resource that we hold for both the community of Yirrkala, which is up in northwest Arnhem Land, and for a local, national and international audience as well. The works were gifted to the museum by the inaugural Professor of Anthropology at University of Western Australia, Professor Ronald Burnt and his wife Catherine. And one of our key strategies to ensure our collections are accessible and to make sure that these works reach a wider audience is this exhibition was part of a national tour that went to Sydney and to Brisbane and to Darwin last year. And later this year, along with one of your projects, Joanna, will be part of the Istanbul Biennale. Secondly, the exhibition was developed in partnership with the Yirrkala community. Our curator, Fiona Gavino, travelled to Yirrkala to discuss her curatorial premise for the exhibition and to gain the support and approval of the Yolngu elders. Over the past 3 years, the Burnt Museum has also been working with the Art Gallery of New South Wales to prepare that exhibition for touring that I mentioned, including a publication of a substantial catalogue, which was funded by the Burnt Foundation. Curators and conservators from the Art Gallery of New South Wales spent time at the Burnt Museum, and they also travelled to Yirrkala. These partnerships are essential in developing major projects such as Yirrkala drawings, and they enable that rigorous scholarship that ensures a deep and a rich context for those viewing the exhibition. How to present the exhibition was really fundamental, and it was rehearsed in those three venues. We needed to review what was the best way and the best context for an exhibition that presented works from 1946 and 47. Those earlier works that you saw, the barks, were made in 46, and in 47 they were converted into crayon drawings. Balancing the needs of 21st century audiences with respect for cultural sensitivities and community experience led to debates about the best way to enable an audience in a gallery environment to engage with the works as a significant record of stories and knowledge, and of artefacts that actually still are part of the life of the Yolngu people. So although they need to be cared for behind glass, some are presented in boxes lying flat as they would have been created and first experienced. Some of these works have not been seen since 1947 when they were made. This work in particular was rolled up because it was too big to hold in the Burnt Museum. It remained rolled for all of those years and unravelled for this exhibition. So no one has seen this work, including the Burnts, for all that period of time. And it is a remarkable work in that it is the Yirrkala people both remembering and recording a Macassan prau, which would have arrived many hundreds of years before on the coast of Western Australia. I just love this inventory of chattels and goods, and that's the actual work. To try and explain how this complexity came about, we created an animation that was layering the information that together makes up these multifaceted works. The numbers that you can see at the bottom are recordings in Professor Burnt's diary, indicating the particular story and the way it locks in with the other stories to create these very, very wonderful and complex documents. Documents, really, in a way, more than even artworks. This involvement with the cultural owners of the material and with the museum community, and also with the wider arts community, is an essential feature in the development of all our projects. The Burnt Museum staff had previously worked with a community on Goulburn Island in Western Arnhem Land to develop a wonderful exhibition last year called Little Pictures, Big Stories, which also looked at work that was collected by Professor Ronald Burnt and his wife Catherine. And it required a very close relationship with the community. Our two curators travelled to North Goulburn Island and undertook intensive research with the members of the community. They showed them copies of the material that the Burnts had gathered and asked them for the story. This is a little example. We created another animation here to try and explain how this particular work, the Ma'awakara story, told a story which was about a young man who goes to another island, screws somebody else's wife, gets into a lot of trouble, actually gets killed, and that story is told as a form of warning for the community. You must not do this. But it's then also linked in to a very interesting sort of geological fact, or sort of biological fact, that there's one type of goanna on one island and there's another entirely different goanna on the other island, and the goose hardly ever goes to one of the islands. So trying to explain that story, that actual piece of actual reality, and locking it into a very complex story about social mores was part of this whole wonderful work. So the Little Pictures, Big Stories project and Yirrkala drawings underpin the objective of an academic art museum based in a research university, which is to gain information about the materials they hold, to reinforce their custodial responsibilities as holders of that material for the communities, and to provide informed access to the work for a wider audience. Alongside the Burnt Museum, the University of Western Australia is host to the Lawrence Wilson Gallery and also the Crothers Collection of Women's Art. And we try and have exhibitions and programs that link together in tandem, so that when those exhibitions do link together, we can have a multiple way of looking at the exhibitions and the works that are on show. Sometimes the exhibitions have a historical focus, and sometimes they are looking at particular themes and issues. and sometimes those issues are related across all three exhibitions. This is the space for the Carruthers collection. For decades, the hub of creative life in Perth was UWA, but it lost that centrality, and we've been trying to get it back. To recreate that sense of urgency and creativity, we have introduced our Here and Now exhibition program. Here and Now is looking at particular forms of practice right here, right now in Western Australia, and it's always curated by a young curator. The first was in 2012, curated by Katie Lenanton, and her exhibition explored the interface between art and craft, and also into that liminal space of the artist-run initiative. Before she looked after this esteemed organisation, Catherine Wilkinson was the curator of Here and Now 13, which was a wonderful celebration of the art of 11 artists with disability in Western Australia. One of the most joyous exhibitions I think we've ever had in our gallery. I, in fact, bought one of those wonderful Clive Colander works and enjoy it to this day. And there was also video works as well. Last year we had Here and Now 14, which looked at artists working in ceramics, which was curated by Emma Bitmead. This was an exhibition which gave artists an opportunity to work on a scale that they hadn't previously been able to, and also to give them the sort of presentation opportunities that had previously not been given or offered to artists working in the crafts, and particularly in ceramics. In 2015, that's this year, our next exhibition is to explore sculpture in the ever-expanding field through the insights of our curator, Andrew Purvis. And these are the artists, though not necessarily the works, that will be included in that show, including performance works and works that will be large installations occupying most of the galleries. That's the one by Abdul Rahman Abdullah. A key factor in developing our Here and Now project was the desire to work closely with artists and to commission where possible the works that make up the exhibition. Practically, this assists artists who make the work that they would really want to make to be included in an important survey exhibition, and it gives us as a collecting institution the opportunity to get really wonderful works for our collection. Another opportunity of the University Art Museum is to give local artists the opportunity to work alongside their heroes. For Luminous Flux, we invited 4 West Australian artists to show alongside 4 international artists working in light, including Dan Flavin, Jim Campbell and Bill Culbert, with works, because we're very lucky in this state, as you know, to have the Kerry Stokes collection. Those works that were created by Paul Caporn, Rebecca Bauman, Tom Muller and Brendan Van Heck were done on a scale that was probably impossible without some level of support. And this was my favourite work, I think, in the exhibition, Beck Bauman's Extraordinary Reflected Glory. Through a collaboration with Gallery 4A in Sydney, we were also able to present works by contemporary Asian Australian artists, responding to their history and to their environment. Located within the same time zone as 60% of the world's population, that's us, 60% of the world's population in our time zone, and with a cultural hotspot of cultural diversity, it is incumbent on a museum like ours to celebrate cultural exchange that flows from the proximity with very diverse cultures. Orienting Within and Without You was curated by Aaron Sito and showcased the works of Asian Australian contemporary artists and also those artists who were responding to the rich and diverse cultures that surround us. To fulfil what Kuno describes as the special mission of the Academic Art Museum, we also run a series of seminars on topics that are of relevance to museum and gallery professionals. Our conversation series have explored current concerns within the field and opened them up for debate and for review. Invited speakers engage in a roundtable discussion with key figures from the local arts sector to generate an atmosphere of critique and experimentation. And our public programs for all our exhibitions are likewise designed to open up conversations and provoke dialogue. And we also invite artists in residence who provide another level of engagement with local artists. During Orienting, we invited Casey Ayres and Abdul Abdullah to create new works that explored their dual heritage as both Asian and Australian artists. They were shown on our 24/7 screen at the gallery during the last week of the exhibition. We certainly believe that digital engagement provides the opportunity to connect with audiences in a variety of ways and to enhance the possibility of generating productive interactions and exchanges. Our iPads in the gallery present information about the exhibitions that is additional to the catalogue, the labels, and to the didactic panels. And we also use Facebook, of course, and Instagram to connect with audiences, and QR codes, like all of us. But the Cultural Precinct attracted an equivalent number of visitors to its website and to visitors through the door, while social media content increased to over double our visitor numbers. And in fact, our external digital reach has increased 1,000% over the last 2 years. One of the central platforms on which we deliver our activities is, though, through our website, and we're working to make collections, our exhibitions and our activities more accessible to a wider audience. In particular, we're refocusing our website as a portal into arts and cultural activities that happen in Western Australia and on campus. And we're currently exploring ways of engaging regional and remote audiences through the CRC, the Community Resource Centre Network, and also Westlink TV. And we're also looking at developing relationships with the big screens in Perth, multiple screens in hospitals and other audiences so that we can reach out and make sure that people are aware of what we're doing. One of the questions that Marco set us for this particular discussion around museums and galleries and communities was to examine in what ways museums and galleries are responding to post-studio forms of practice. Our aim at UWA Museums is to be responsive to contemporary forms of practice and to engage with artists in presenting their work to the audiences that they seek to reach. And in some instances, such as this work by Jacobus Capone, the works are conceived by the artist as a mode of gallery presentation. And in those instances, it is very appropriate for us to incorporate them into our exhibitions. This is certainly the case with all the forthcoming Here and Now artists working with Andrew Purvis. But we're also conscious of the fact that there are forms of post-studio practice that are designed by artists to present their work in opposition to the prevalent ideologies in which art has been increasingly determined by market ideologies and instrumentalised by public institutions of display. And for those artists, the gallery is never and can never be an appropriate venue. So finally, in answer to this theme of the panel session, the Burnt Museum, the Lawrence Wilson Art Gallery and the Crothers Collection of Women's Art are committed to a productive collaboration with contemporary artists and to our wider communities to ensure that we present a vibrant and relevant cultural experience for those on campus and for audiences externally. We are ever mindful that galleries and museums are reliant on the work of artists, and we wish to provide encouragement and support to them in creating their work and in presenting it in the highest possible standards. Thank you.